Hello, everyone. It's Robin Da Vinci back with you with another informative video. And it is tax season, and everybody knows and cringes when January 1st comes because they know they either have to do something for the government or get something from the government to give to someone else for the government. It's always about the government from January 1st to April 15th. Oh, and beyond that. But basically, those are the dates. So, what I want to reiterate this video, I want to talk again about what a W 9 is for and how it then goes to the 1099 and then how that 1099 ends up on your tax return. So, I'm going to do it pretty concisely and quickly. If you look at the W 9 form, it is for independent contractors. What this form is saying is that you certify that you are not an employee and you're not going to be an employee, but you are in business for yourself and that you have people paying you money that is not taxed and that you take care of it yourself because you are a small business owner. So the W 9, if someone that you go to work for hands you a W 9 and says, fill this out, that means you are not getting taxes taken out of your money. You work independently, and I'm going to give you a check whenever you bill me with invoices and pay you. And then at the end of the year, I'm going to inform the government that I indeed did pay you. Before I go into the form really quickly, you'll hear a lot of people say, oh no, don't give me a 1099, or I'm not going to fill out a W9, or just give me cash under the table, or let's not tell anybody I made $2,000 from you designing your office space. That's not legal. So if you're doing that, I'm going to tell you now to hide money that you made, to get money under the table, or to ask someone not to present a 1099 at the end of the year is illegal. Do I know lots of people do it? Absolutely. But is it legal? No. Okay, so let's look at the W 9 form. The W 9 form is for the person paying you to have your current address and your current tax ID, because when they give you that 1099, they're taking the information from this form. So the first line is, what is the name on your tax return? So if you are a corporation, you would put the name of your corporation on that first line. Like, I'm Robin Da Vinci Inc. So Robin Da Vinci Inc. would go on the first line. However, if my company is a sole proprietorship and I'm Robin Da Vinci Bookkeeping, then the first line will say Robin Da Vinci because that's what's going to be on my tax return, the main one. And the business, which is a business name, would be Robin Da Vinci Bookkeeping. So let's be clear. If I were a sole proprietor without a corporation, I would fill out the second line as Robin Da Vinci Bookkeeper, but the first line as Robin Da Vinci because they will find that money under my main my main name. But if I go to work for someone as Robin Da Vinci Inc., then the first line will say Robin Da Vinci Inc. So that's the differentiation. So if you're an LLC or a corporation and you file a separate return, then that's where it goes. Also, if you're a disregarded LLC, you can put it on the second line and have your first name on the first line. Then you go to box 3 and it says, are you an individual, a sole proprietor, or a single member LLC? An individual or a sole proprietor is about the same thing. You are working as a contractor under your regular name and you don't really have a company that you have a name for, or a single member LLC. This is what that means. You opened an LLC, you have the paperwork of an LLC, but you are the only person in it. Because if you had two people in it, it would be a partnership. So then go over to a C Corp. A C Corp is rare. Doctors, lawyers are often C Corps. Individuals usually aren't a C Corp. So it'd be rare that you'd be that. The most common business is an S Corp. That's what I am. And an S Corp does file its own return. The profit from the S Corp goes on the front page of your regular return, but you would put market if you're an S Corp. If you're a partnership and you are going to give out K1s, that's where that goes. And then if you have a trust or an estate and your trust or estate is working for someone, then it goes there. The limited liability company, sometimes, and these get complicated, an LLC is taxed as a C Corp, an S Corp, or a partnership. My S Corp is taxed as an S Corp. Sometimes my limited liability company at the end was taxed as an S Corp. So you need to ask that question if you don't know it. If you have an LLC, how is the tax classification? Then you put in your address, your current address, and your city and state. And then you don't have to list an account number unless you want to in item 7. So item 5 is your street address. Item 6 is your city, state, and zip code. And item 7 is an account number if you wish to give it account number, or if the person who's hiring you has given you account number. Item 4 is interesting because here's what happens if you don't pay tax on the money that's given you. So here's how it works. You fill out this W9, you go to work for someone, they're paying you $1,000 a week. At the end of the year, they give you a 1099 for $52,000. What that says is you are going to take that $52,000, put it on your tax return and pay the tax. If you don't, the person that issued the 1099 has to pay the tax because the government's going to go after them and say you were misclassified. So number 4 is about, are you exempt from anything? And the truth is, basically no one is. You would have to really look that up to see if you're exempt, but no person like me is exempt from paying tax on the $52,000 they might have made or the $12,000. So understand that number 4 is about exemptions to paying tax for certain entities. And most of you won't qualify for that. But certainly if you feel you're exempt, that's really a question for a tax attorney. So then if you go down to part 1, the tax ID number, what they're saying to you is if you're a sole proprietor or an individual, what is your social security number? Because when they give you your 1099, they are putting your social security number on that 1099. And the government will then match that up to your tax return and look for those amounts of money. So let's say 3 people issue 1099s for 2022 and they total $32,600. And the person giving you that 1099 actually has to transmit that to the government. So they need to e-file that form on your behalf. So the government knows you got a 1099. So when you go to file your tax return, they're going to look for all of your 1099 amounts on your return. So there's really no way out of that. And if you don't file all the money, they will go after you. And if you were misclassified as a 1099 when you should have been an employee, they will go after your person that paid you. So we don't want to get into that kind of thing. You don't want to be on anybody's radar and you don't want to send up a red flag. So everyone listening, report your income. It's the law. Okay. And then if you do have an entity, an LLC or an S Corp or a C Corp partnership, you will have an employee identification number. That is usually 2 numbers followed by a dash followed by 7 numbers. I have employer identification numbers. And so then you sign your W-9, date it, and give it to the person who's going to pay you. Now, one of the things you have to understand about an employer ID number is that even if you open an LLC or an S Corp and you are not intending to hire employees, they're going to give you this identification number. So down the line, if you do hire people, you are identified by a number. So if you get your number your employer identification number. You can go on the IRS and apply for one and get one that day. Make sure you print out the IRS letter confirming your ID number, because if you want to go to the bank and you want to open an account, you have to have proof of a tax ID number, either your social security card or your employer identification number with the letter from the IRS. When you apply, it will say, would you like to print the letter? And you say yes and print out the letter. Make sure you have that letter as part of your package to go to the bank and open an account. So let's go back to the top of the form and let's reiterate just quickly what this is about. So, if you are a sole proprietorship without a real entity, that name that you're doing business as would go on line 2, and your name would go on line 1. Um, Number 3, you would check if you're an individual, a sole proprietor, or an LLC with no other members, a C Corp, an S Corp, or a partnership. A partnership would also be if you have an LLC with 2 members. You would mark partnership, not LLC. And then a trust or estate, which really isn't all that common. Then the limited liability company, is that LLC being taxed as a C Corp, an S Corp, or a partnership? You mark it there. Then over in number 4, those are exemptions from tax. Those are rare occasions for those of us who work for a living on a regular basis. This would be a very different thing that you would want to check with someone to make sure that you are exempt or not exempt. Then in number 5 is your address. It has to be accurate and it needs to match what's going to be on your return. Number 6, city, state, zip code. You don't have to put the requester's name and address, and that's optional. And then if the person issuing the 1099 has given you an account number, you can put it there. Or if you wish to assign an account number, you can put it there. Then in part 1 is your social security number, and that's usually used for individuals, sole proprietors, or single member LLCs. But usually, if it's any type of entity other than yourself personally, you should get an employer identification number. Don't be freaked out by all the paperwork you might get at the beginning. It's only there so in case you desire to hire someone, you have your employer ID. Then sign the form and give it to your employer. Then, because you've done this, at the end of the year, you're going to probably get, if you look at the bottom, a Form 1099 miscellaneous, and it may say NEC on it. NEC means non-employee compensation. That means you are not an employee, you are a small business, and they're issuing you this 1099. Then all the 1099s that you receive, you take to your tax person. They will add them all up. They will put it on your Schedule C business, take your deductions, and then you'll pay the tax accordingly. So don't forget that on the other side of filling out a W9 is that a 1099 will be issued to you and the government, and they will look for you to have filed your taxes with these amounts on it. Now, the federal government also tells the state you live in that you have received 1099s. So don't think your state isn't going to know, because the federal government transmits to the state all the 1099s they receive from that state. So don't think you're off the hook anywhere. If you think, oh, well, I work in this state. No, the federal government will tell your state, and your state return needs to reflect the money you made. So we're not getting out of this without paying tax. So please follow the law, because that is what's legal and lawful to do. The importance of receiving a 1099 while we're getting the form up is that, you have to show income to be able to qualify for SBA loans or grants or anything. You need to show income. It is not a good thing to show your company as making no money. Your company has to make money, and you have to prove that you're a viable business. So actually, it's a good thing that you pay tax. It's a good thing that you are making money. So when you receive the 1099, or if you're someone who wants to know how to fill out a 1099, because you have small contractors working for you will go over that. So if you look at it, the person giving you the 1099 is in the top box. And then under that is their ID number. And next to that is your ID number. So that is where the government gets this information. The payor, the person that paid you, is giving the government their tax ID number because they're taking you as a deduction. They're giving the government your tax ID numbers because the government is looking for your information, your income information. Then it's the recipient's name, address, city, and state. And then they will come over to the box that says income, and it will say NEC income, non-employee compensation, and it'll give them the amount that they paid you. Now, mind you, what we really want on this form from the person paying you, so listen up, is labor only. If you paid someone and then you reimburse them for mileage, or uh, they did postage and you're reimbursing them for postage or delivery or anything, that does not go on a 1099 form. The only thing that goes on a 1099 is labor. If you're a chef and you shop for someone and you charge them for the groceries you buy and they reimburse you, that does not go on a 1099. What goes on the 1099 is the chef's labor. Or in my case, sometimes I forward things on behalf of the client and then they reimburse me. That does not go on my 1099, only my services, only my labor. So you want to make sure when you're filling this out as the owner of the business that you're only putting in the labor wages on your 1099. Uh, don't panic if you receive a 1099 that has more on it. Um, if they wrote you a check on 12/27 and you didn't receive it until January 3rd and you put it in your next year's income, that will be explained on your tax return. So this form, the W9, is you filling out for the person hiring you. The 1099 is the person who hired you filling out a form and telling you what you made. I do have a problem with people who haven't yet tapped into their inner bookkeeper. If you have to call and ask what you made, you should know all through the year what you made. This is just sort of a tattletale government form. And I know a lot of people object to getting a 1099 because they don't want the government to know they made money, but that's illegal. And this one is really for you, and to let the government know that you made money during the year. So W9 is for the person you work for. The 1099 is from the person you work for. And then this 1099 should end up on a Schedule C by your tax person, or if you do your own taxes. There are lots of software out there that you can use and do your own taxes. So that will go on your Schedule C. And on that Schedule C will be all the money you made during the year and all the expenses you had to run that company that you're running. And then the bottom line is your net profit, and you will pay tax on your net profit. So that's what the W9, the 1099, and the Schedule C all have in common. They're you working and someone else regarding you as an independent contractor, a freelancer, a small business. Those are all names for the same thing. You will receive a 1099 for your services. And I think that's it. It's much easier than my words might appear, but when you fill out the W9, you fill it out accurately, and then the person who hired you can fill this out accurately. It's pretty much known that you have to e-file. You can still send it. The government expects to receive the red form, and you may laugh because you've not done this before, but the government wants red forms. So you don't get away with sending in copies of a copy of a copy or anything. You have to submit a red form. So if there's enough interest, I will show people how to fill out the 1099. I'll show people who own businesses who are hiring people how to fill out the 1099 and the 1096, which is the cover page. So we've got a W-9, a 1099, a 1096, and we have the Schedule C. So that about wraps it up for what a W-9 means to a small business, for a small business. And I welcome your comments and thumbs up. It's tax season. Get your stuff together. Get it to someone competent who can put your tax return together for you. Make sure that it's correct. Don't send up red flags, and make sure that you're going to someone who really knows what they're doing. Thank you so much. Thumbs up, subscribe. I'm Robin Da Vinci. We'll tackle another subject soon. Take care.